So I want to start by reading a poem by Spencer Reese from The Clerk's Tale. Interlude. We are two men on a park bench in Palm Beach, oblivious to the two men who start their truck with that boy from the bar inside, dragging him in the dark to the fence, strapping him with a rope to a post in Laramie, Wyoming, where he freezes and dies over 5 days. My dear, it is late. The Flagler Museum is shut. Stay with me. Remain here with me. Spencer Reese. I'll start with 4 poems from this selected poems. And I'll start with a poem which, when I used to read it, I used to look up and check if the ceilings were lightning bolt proof, since I grew up under a Jehovah who was never in a good mood. I go back to May 1937. I see them standing at the formal gates of their colleges. I see my father strolling out under the ochre sandstone arch, the red tiles glinting like bent plates of blood behind his head. I see my mother with a few light books at her hip, standing at the pillar made of tiny bricks, the wrought iron gate still open behind her, its sword tips aglow in the May air. They are about to graduate. They are about to get married. They are kids. They are dumb. All they know is they are innocent. They would never hurt anybody. I want to go up to them and say, stop, don't do it. She's the wrong woman. He's the wrong man. You are going to do things you cannot imagine you would ever do. You are going to do bad things to children. You are going to suffer in ways you have not heard of. You are going to want to die. I want to go up to them there in the late May sunlight and say it. Her hungry, pretty face turning to me, her pitiful, beautiful, untouched body. His arrogant, handsome face turning to me, his pitiful, beautiful, untouched body. But I don't do it. I want to live. I take them up like the male and female paper dolls and bang them together at the hips like chips of flint, as if to strike sparks from them. I say, do what you are going to do, and I will tell about it. The race. When I got to the airport, I rushed up to the desk, bought a ticket. 10 minutes later, they told me the flight was canceled. The doctors had said my father would not live through the night, and the flight was canceled. A young man with a dark brown mustache told me another airline had a nonstop leaving in 7 minutes. See that elevator over there? Well, go down to the first floor, make a right. You'll see a yellow bus. Get off at the second Pan Am terminal. I ran. I, who have no sense of direction, raced exactly where he'd told me, a fish slipping upstream deftly against the flow of the river. I jumped off that bus with those bags I had thrown everything into in 5 minutes and ran. The bags wagged me from side to side as if to prove I was under the claims of the material. I ran up to a man with a flower on his breast. I, who always go to the end of the line, I said, help me. He looked at my ticket. He said, make a left and then a right, go up the moving stairs and then run. I lumbered up the moving stairs. At the top, I saw the corridor, and then I took a deep breath. I said goodbye to my body, goodbye to comfort. I used my legs and heart as if I would gladly use them up for this, to touch him again in this life. I ran, and the bags banged against me, wheeled and coursed in skewed orbits. I have seen pictures of women running, their belongings tied in scarves grasped in their fists. I blessed my long legs he gave me. My strong heart I abandoned to its own purpose. I ran to gate 17 and they were just lifting the thick white lozenge of the door to fit it into the socket of the plane. Like the one who is not too rich, I turned sideways and slipped through the needle's eye, and then I walked down the aisle toward my father. The jet was full, and people's hair was shining. They were smiling. The interior of the plane was filled with a mist of gold endorphin light. I wept as people weep when they enter heaven in massive relief. We lifted up gently from one tip of the continent and did not stop until we sat down lightly on the other edge. I walked into his room and watched his chest rise slowly and sink again. All night, I watched him breathe. Bathing the newborn. I love with an almost fearful love to remember the first baths I gave him, our second child, so I knew what to do. I laid the little torso along my left forearm, nape of the neck and the crook of my elbow, hips nearly as small as a least tern's tail against my wrist, thigh held loosely in the loop of thumb and forefinger, the sign that means exactly right. I'd soap him, the violet cold feet, the scrotum wrinkled as a waved whelk, the chest, hands, clavicles, throat, gummy furs of the scalp. When I got him too soapy, he'd slide in my grip like an armful of buttered noodles, but I'd hold him not too tight. I felt that I was good for him. I'd tell him about his wonderful body and the wonderful soap, and he'd look up at me, 1 week old, his eyes still wide and apprehensive. I love that time when you croon and croon to them. You can see the calm slowly entering them. You can sense it in your clasping hand, the loose spine relaxing against the muscle of your forearm. You feel the fear leaving their bodies. He lay in the blue oval plastic baby tub and looked at me in wonder and began to move his silky limbs at will in the water. We don't choose what we're going to write our poems about that turn out to please us enough as poems to want to share them with other people. It's not our fault. First condom. He held it up a moment, dripping, wrinkled so fine it was like something withered but soaking, embryonic, new and sweet. It elongated up from its tiny 1950s indigo oval prophylaxis box. Good Lord, this was one of those, deep secret of men and drugstores and Chevys and Dodges, glistening out of its dainty cobalt hat box and seen in the heavy, thick charge of desire. And it smelled funny, musky as a food, a stew, mutton, and I think could it have been a sheep's intestine? I was going to be fucked in dearest love through a ram, through the gut of a lamb. I did not think that. I thought my job on earth was to love what happened, to adore it. And when he drew it onto himself and its wrinkles were smoothed out, then it was the swollen dress suit on him. It became a part of the tenderness and hardness and tranquility of him, the sparkling. And so love entered me in sheep's clothing, drawn as a magician's unguent festinating scarf up out of that pillbox of night. And without having to earn or deserve it, I was welcomed into the dazzle, the Milky Way of the pasture and hillside, even the stable, where what was best about us shone under meteor by blood hay light. I remember sending out poems to offer to submit to magazines and the notes I would get back explaining. They were literary magazines, and these poems were about children. These were a mother's poems about children. There were magazines for poems like that, not theirs. Psalm. Bending over at the August table where the summer towels are kept, putting a stack on the bottom shelf, I felt his kiss in its shock of whiskers on an inner curve of that place I know by his knowing, have seen with the vision of his touch. To be entered thus on a hip-high table piled with sheaves of towels, bath and hand, terry cloth, Eden, is to feel at one's center a core of liquid heat as if one is an earth. Sometime later, we were kissing in near sleep. I think we did it this time, I whispered. I think we're joined at the hip. He has a smile sometimes from the heart. At this hour, I live in its light. I gnaw very gently on his jaw. Would you want me to eat you in the Andes in a plane crash, I murmur, to survive? Yes. We smile. He asks, would you want me to eat you to survive? I would love it, I cry out. We almost sleep. There is a series of arms around us and between us in sets, touches given as if received. Did you think we were going to turn into each other? And I get one of those smiles, as if his face is a speckled, rubbled, sandy, satiny cactus flower, 8 inches across. Yes, he whispers. I know he is humoring, rote, sweet talking. A sliver of late sun is coming through between the curtains. It illumines the scaly surfaces of my knuckles, its line like a needle held to cleanse it above a match. I move my wedding finger to stand in the slit of flame. From the ring's curve there rises a fan of borealis fur like the first instant of sunrise. Do not tell me this could end. Do not tell me. I really do believe that if we try to write something that will be that will cross a line, that if that's our purpose, my feeling is the poem won't work as a poem, that a work of art has its standards, and you can't go into it and make something that you'll like well enough to feel it's alive enough to want to, with respect, share, unless the poem is free to go where it would go. So, with that disclaimer, I guess I will read this one that seems to come next. Little End Ode. When I told my mother the joke, the new kid at college who asked where the library's at, and the sophomore who said, at Yale, we do not end our sentences with prepositions, whereupon the frosh said, oh, I beg your pardon, where's the library at, asshole? She shrieked with delight. Asshole, she murmured fondly. She's become so fresh, rinsed with sweetness, as if she is music, the strings especially high and bright. Asshole, she sighs in contentment, as if she has finally once talked back to her mother. Or maybe it is the closest she has come for a while to the rich animal life she lived with her second husband. Now, I can see that of course she touched him everywhere, as lovers do. She touched me there, you know, courteously with oil like myrrh. Soon after she had given me life, she gave me pleasure, which gave her pleasure. Maybe it felt to her fingertip like the complex, clean knot of her fire girl's tie clasp. She seems, these days, like a very human goddess. I do not want her to die. This feels like a new not want, a shalt not want. As soon as I dared, around 50, I called her to myself once the A word. And yet, now, if she goes, when she goes, to me it is like the departure of a whole small species of singing bird from the earth. Not so far away as most of the rest of these were written. And I worked on it a little on the plane, so I will do my best not to stumble with it. Return to Key West after my mother's death. And here it is again, the bosomy sea, striped aqua and golden, like her favorite shirt from 1937, when New York and London had made between them the new voluptuous bolt and named it after themselves, nylon. And here they are, the Bible fronds and the magnificent frigate spreading its protractor legs, its breast striking mirror bright hard like a gong. By the porch, the chartreuse milk nuts of the fibrous palm, and the monkey wasps in warring pairs, and the dyad of fighter jets cutting and cutting the air, all here, all present and accounted for, none absent from last year. And I feel I should tell them, and I don't want to tell them, that their queen is gone. Not that she oiled their parts, but that they belong to her, the earth, her music box egg. But of course the chopped sky, the undulant ocean, the fan of coconut feathers are pure indifferent. They are what she is now, my mother, air, water, earth, fire. And a couple of tiny saucers of churned cream go by, joined at the hip. Oh, my sulfur, my winter butterfly. Last look. In the last minute of our marriage, I looked into his eyes. All that day until then, I had been comforting him for the shock he was in at his pain. By dint of leaving me, he would lose some of the places of his old life. But now it was time to go beyond comfort, to part. And his eyes seemed to me still like the ocean where the blue-green algae came into their language. His sea-wide iris still essential for me with the depths in which our daughter and then our son had turned. On the sides of their tongues, the taste buds for the moon-bland nectar of our milk. In his gaze, rooms of the dead, halls of loss, fog, iceberg, driven dirty rice snow. He was in there somewhere. I looked for him, and he gave me the gift. He let me in, knowing he would never once in this world or in any other have to do it again. And I saw him see me, even now, that dropping down into trust's affection in his gaze. And I held it some seconds, quiet. And I said goodbye, and he said goodbye. And I closed my eyes and rose up out of the passenger seat in a spiral like someone coming up out of a car gone off a bridge into deep water. And even 3 Septembers later, and even the September after that, I was glad I had looked at him. And when I told a friend how glad I'd been, she said, maybe it's like with the families of the dead. even the families of those who died in the towers. That sacred desire to see the body, no longer inhabited by what made them the one we loved, that somehow it would help to say goodbye to the actual. And I saw again how blessed my life has been. First, to have been able to love for life, then to have been able to live through the parting, and not to have lost him when the kids were young, and the kids now not at all to have lost him, and not to have lost him when he loved me, and not to have lost someone who could have loved for life. Animal crackers. I liked to bite the hindquarters off the hippopotamuses and the humps off the camels. I loved tails and ears like those of the hollow chocolate rabbit who appeared in my house when Jesus rose. The indented spots on the leopard sent me the deep engravings in the zebra's side. Sometimes I like to save the head, then pop it in and attend to feel that brain of dumb sugar and flour added to mine. And now that I am half old, I want some poet crackers, some smarts, some Claires, little busts or cameos of everyone to eat. I ate Christ and the bunny. I want a Whitman communion matzo. I want Dickinson by her own recipe and Keats' bright oatmeal brooch. I need to read, lip read, tooth read, Ruth Stone, Langston Hughes, oh sweet salty Rookheiser cracker. And I would like to be one, no matter it is undeserved. I want to be in those little boxes with woven handles like shed snakeskins, edible Cannells, Cliftons, and Oldses. I wish when I am dead I could be among the English and American animal crackers. I've been trying to write about Calvinism, about people raised in cultures of hell and corporal punishment and the elect and all of that. So here's a try. It has 2 epigraphs. It's called Calvinist Parents. First epigraph. During the Truman administration, Sharon Olds' parents tied her to a chair, and she is still writing about it. That's a review in New Criterion. Second quote. My father was a gentleman, and he expected us to be gentlemen. And if we did not observe the niceties, he whopped us with his belt. He had a strong arm, and boy, did we feel it. This is Prescott Sheldon Bush Jr., brother to a president and uncle to another. Calvinist parents. They put a roof over our heads. Each tile was a slab of clay laid over a thigh and bent until it dried bent. The edge of the roof had a broken look, as if a lot of crockery had been thrown down onto the home, a dump for heaven's cheap earthenware. Along the eaves, the rows of arcs were like the Colosseum arches where the lion might appear, or the 8-foot armored being with the face of a lady. Bees would not roost in those concave combs above our rooms, birds not swarm. How does a young'un pay for room and board? By belt, by hairbrush, by 2x4. They put a roof over our heads against lightning and droppings, no foreign genes, no outside gestures, no unfamiliar words. And under the roof, they beat us into swords. So one of the things I've learned by traveling and reading, especially staying in in amazing hotels, especially hotels that have all mirrors for the walls and floor and ceiling. I've just learned a lot about myself, and this poem came out of some of that education. Self-portrait, rear view. At first, I do not believe it in the hotel triple mirror, that is my body, in back, below the waist and above the legs, the thing that doesn't stop moving when I stop moving. And it doesn't look like just one thing, or even one big double thing. Even the word saddlebags has a smooth calfskin feel to it, compared to this compendium of net string bags shaking their booty of cellulite fruits and nuts. Some lumps look like bonbons translated intact from chocolate box to buttocks, the curl on top showing slightly through my skin. Once I see what I can do with this, I do it, high-stepping to make the rapids of my bottom rush in ripples like a world wonder. Slowly, I believe what I am seeing. A 54-year-old rear end, once a tight end, high and mighty, almost a chicken butt, now exhausted, as if tragic. But this is not an invasion. My cul-de-sac is not being used to hatch alien cells, ball peens, gyroscope, sacks of marbles. It's my hoard of treasure, my good luck not to be dead yet. Though when I toss the mane of my ass again and see in a clutch of eggs, each egg on its own as if shellless, shudder, I wonder if anyone has ever died looking in a mirror of horror. I think I will not even catch a cold from it. I will go to school to it, to butt boot camp, to the video store where I saw in the window my hero, my workout jelly role model, my apotheosis, Killer Buns. The saying. With my boyfriend, after 30 years with my husband in which we had said that hour only each other's names and I love you and those cries of cat and horse, the strings not taken but played alive in the body, his general unspeakingness, something I entered like a holy drench, as if it was better than speech. After all that time, then suddenly, with my boyfriend, my jaw would slacken as I remembered in the morning things he had said in the night in the bed. And I went into the world of saying, mouth open with him, as if I were going into a more real world where a noun was an organ low in the belly, as if there was respiratory and circulatory and skeletal and language. And the special words, his tongue would plunge them up onto his palate and they'd detonate inside me. Slow beginner at saying, it would take me a while to get 3 or 4 dead sincere shuddering words out, something about him as we turned, slow dancing on the bed that especially moved me. And then would come his savoring egging on, you like it, you like it. The pleasure expanding with the language, not love talk, yet driving us forward, warmly sardonic in his knowingness, but not mocking or mean, but ironic. I can't describe it. More savvy than tenderness, as if showing you know is the vital thing, saying it the most exciting thing, as if the worst thing would be for the life force not to know, you know it knows you want it to push you. Hand over fist, we were going down that path together, like children in the power of a god or in the power of punishing parents. You like it, you like it. And after a while, I could not help knowing love was not there. And if you're touched deep, that deep touch and love is not there, something might die. Goodbye, bright falls of talk, Sweet dazzle over rock, salt fury of pounding water, goodbye, closed chamber of the heart. I like it to suffer desire, although it is the daughter and mother of loss. Between love and language, I choose love and language. Thank you.